With everything that's been going on, we decided we weren't going to wait till next year to get started on the garden. For the last 2 years, our goal has been to try and pull the house together and fix the myriad of issues it's had. But this year we decided, no, now we really need to get started on the garden. So while Corazon focused on digging out the area for the polytunnel, I focused on digging out the old tree roots that we had in the corner, and then all the bushes that lined the fence that all needed to be cleared, since we're going to be putting in fruit trees and raised beds. And we want this to be a working garden, not an ornamental garden. While we are going to have plants which are purely ornamental, and at some point I would love some lilac, at the moment our focus is to try and grow food, so that is what we started on. Digging out the ground underneath the polytunnel took about 2 weeks in total. In between everything else that we needed to do, there were huge lumps of concrete that were hidden in the ground, and the soil in our area is really bad. It's basically just stones and clay, and as soon as you go 2 inches below the topsoil, it just gets so incredibly hard. So that took a very long time to dig out. But once that was done and the polytunnel was put together, we just needed to move it into place. Ideally, we could really have done with a hand on this. Having 4 or even 6 people to lift it would have been great, but obviously that wasn't possible with social distancing, so we managed to make do ourselves. And then in order to get the polytunnel level, we used some of the very many slabs that for some reason was scattered all over the garden when we moved in, and those needed to get broken up. And we've actually managed to find a lot of uses for those slabs. They were broken up to raise up the polytunnel and to make sure that it was really firmly fixed in the ground and wasn't going to go anywhere. And then once we started to put together a proper compost area, Corazon managed to use them to create kind of a beautiful terrace that I think looks really beautiful. He doesn't like it, but I think it's gorgeous. The worst part of putting together the polytunnel was hands down dealing with the polycarbonate. With the polycarbonate that came with the polytunnel that we bought, it really wasn't enough. As much as I like the actual frame of the polytunnel, the instructions were awful. They were so bad, and even if you followed them, it still meant that you didn't quite have the right amount of polycarbonate, so we had to order some extra. On one hand, I'm not too annoyed about that because Corazon's going to use that to create some, what's the word I'm looking for, some cold frames, and then I want to create some cold frames with the leftovers as well. So it will still get used, but it just annoyed me that part of a kit didn't really contain everything that you needed, and the instructions, like I said, were not fun to deal with, but in the end somehow we managed. When we were talking about how we wanted to design and lay out the garden, we were very seriously considering a greenhouse at first, But the problems we were running into is that if we got a greenhouse, we would need a base, which would mean that we wouldn't be able to use the soil underneath. And one of the benefits of having the polytunnel is that we could still grow things directly in the soil underneath, and that was something that appealed to us quite a lot. Also, a greenhouse, if we were going to get one the size that we currently have the polytunnel, it just wouldn't have been within our budget. We would have been looking at 3 to 6 grand minimum, which wasn't something we could even remotely afford. The polytunnel that we bought was £600, which was a lot more manageable. And also, with a little one in the garden, or even just me being a clumsy oaf at the best of times, I could very easily see us smashing a piece of glass, and then what do? You've kind of ruined the whole greenhouse, and especially if you have something growing in there and it's cold, you're in real trouble. So we thought, no, let's get a polytunnel, let's get something which is a little bit more resilient to knocks and footballs trying to go through them, and then also we can grow things directly in the ground. So that's why we ended up deciding to go for a polytunnel, which was a much better decision for our garden. Now that we have the compost area built and the polytunnel up, our focus over the rest of the year is to get the patio relayed so that it slopes outwards, and also so that we can have a pergola put up on it, and then we can start collecting rainwater. Even though having a sloped garden is a little bit annoying, it is perfect for rainwater collection because we can have a row of water butts which can collect an awful lot of water. And then on top of that, I want to try and get some raised beds as well. While we can grow a lot in the polytunnel, it's not going to be enough, and I do want to try and get some raised beds. So we're hoping within the next 2 to 3 months we can do that, and then in the winter we're going to have some fruit trees growing in. So hopefully in the next 6 months I'm planning to do another update so you can see what we've been doing in the garden, and then obviously there's going to be all kinds of other videos coming out as well. And yeah, it's nice to start to see the garden coming together. We've been dreaming about doing this for so long, especially while we were living in the flat. We just dreamed of having our own house. And now we finally got started on the garden, and today we got the tomatoes in there and things are growing, and it's a very, very good feeling.